This is the Goal Talk Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Goal Talk Podcast. Today, we're talking about the do's and don'ts of writing ad copy, everything that small business advertisers need to know to be successful and actually crafting the message that your prospects and your customers will see when they run into one of your ads. So with me today, I have Jeff Stevens, who is a program manager here at Wordstream. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Nice
Awesome.
to be here.
I'm super excited to have you here.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what a program manager does at Wordstream? Like, what does that title mean?
Sure. So at Wordstream, we just have a number of service packages that we provide. So if you're purchasing our software, you have the option to attach services to that software subscription. Those services take on different flavors. So my particular role is I focus on the program for our what we call jumpstart clients, who are clients that are getting initial campaigns built for them prior to their usage of the software. And then I also manage our what we call our agency Navigator service, which is a particular flavor of consulting style that's intended for the use of agencies in particular.
Got it.
Yep.
So Jumpstart really focuses on creating campaigns for people that may not have their Google Ads account.
Correct.
Set
It's ground up campaign creation. And we
Got
do
it.
it across Google Ads, Bing, not Facebook at the moment, but we do support search network and display network campaigns for both the Google Ads and the Microsoft Ads interface.
Cool.
And it is essentially a startup option. So if you're looking to get campaigns going or even actually have current campaigns rebuilt, that's the program that you might want to consider. And we work across a number of contexts. We'll take individual advertisers that are just small businesses, medium, whatever size, that have planned spend and an approach that they want to take with paid search, but they may not have confidence doing it for the first time.
Got it.
And then we also work with agencies that perhaps want to build campaigns to promote themselves and gain new leads through those campaigns, or they simply are new to PPC as a service and want professional help to get things going for a client on their behalf.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So does that role sit, what does that role sit on the customer success side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely customer success. Obviously, everybody in customer success also has kind of a core software training, software service aspect to what they do. On my side, I've been with Wordstream for over 6 years now, so I still do a lot of direct work with clients, but most of my time during the day is more so overseeing and supporting the reps that are essentially applying those services to our clients.
Cool.
But I take on plenty as well, and will handle maybe some of the more difficult cases or the larger, more complex clients. Just having the experience, a lot of them will maybe ask for that when they initially come on board. So I'm there to help with that kind of stuff too.
Got it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've been at Wordstream for 6 years. That's a long time.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy to think, actually. It's been a really long time.
Yeah. In startup world, that's
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. No, I was here when, Larry Kim was the guy, still very much so in the orbit of Wordstream, but we must have had 50 to 60 employees at that time.
Oh, wow.
And obviously now we're close to about 300.
Yeah.
So it was a journey and a half. Seeing where we are now, just even sitting, the fact that I'm doing a podcast for Wordstream is unique, and that's definitely a part of our progression. So it's been cool. I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot in the paid search world, but always through the lens of what we're doing at Wordstream for the most part.
And have you always been in digital advertising or digital marketing in general?
Yeah. I graduated school in 2011, and my first job out of school, and it was part of an internship I did while I was there, was it was essentially a Groupon clone. So I was selling direct advertising space to individuals that wanted to do kind of the buy one, get one style offers that Groupon was going with. The site was called Eversave. I'm pretty sure it's defunct at this point. It was definitely catering towards women between the ages of 25 to 50. And a lot of the offers we did were salon-based offers or massage, things like that.
Yeah.
So that was a sales role, but it had me tap into digital marketing strategy in general. Why are people doing these types of online promotions, all that? So it started to kind of pique that interest. I went to school for marketing and philosophy, ironically enough.
Cool.
Was this close to going into academia world and not having anything to do with digital marketing. But I got the job out of school and I was like, I need to make some money, so let's do this. Quickly found out I didn't want to do sales, and instead was more interested in what was going on, the mechanisms behind promoting online ads. My next job after that, I focused on selling digital ad space for advanced financial resources. So it was a very niche market. I was the youngest person at the company, and at the time, This was definitely right when the print to digital shift was starting to happen.
Right.
In the organization I was working for, a CFO had a financial publication that was wildly popular, and it became fairly less popular over the time working there. And they wanted to start focusing more on digital experiences and digital content. So I started selling into that space. It was kind of still a sales business development role, but that led me to working with the HubSpot platform. And my third job out of school was working for a value-added reseller of HubSpot. Okay. So that was about 2 years in a content marketing agency where we worked with HubSpot clients and also did strategy and execution for them.
Awesome.
Yep. And then my roommate and one of my best friends from home, Chris Panetta, who's on our
Oh,
managed service team, he recruited me over to WordStream, and it's been paid search for 6 years ever since.
Paid search since.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris is great. He's on our managed services team.
Yep.
So we've talked to quite a few people on our managed service team. We have talked to Holly Nimick, as well as Zena Kayali and Scott Mesite. So
I was here when Zena was just another customer success rep like all the rest of us, and now she's a director, right?
Yeah. Now she's heading up the whole managed service department.
Exactly. Great. Chris Panetta kind of taught me everything I know for the most part, and then progressed from there. But it was really his doing that led me into WordStream in the paid search world, which I'm very thankful for.
And I'm sure WordStream is thankful for as well.
Yep.
Great. So I'd love to kind of jump in and start talking about our topic today, which is ad copy.
Sure.
In your own words, can you talk to me about, what ad copy means, and how advertisers and businesses should think about approaching ad copy?
Yeah. I think there's a basic way to think about ad copy in the context of paid search, and I'm going to use Google Ads specifically as my kind of foundation point here. But you're basically doing two things with ad copy. You're attempting to satisfy conditions that Google has put in front of you. Most of you listening probably know that I'm talking about quality score in particular. You need to essentially craft ad copy in a way that has alignment between your keyword selection, your ad group structure, campaign structure, the actual landing page that you're sending users to. You need to create a chain of relevancy that Google can visually actually look into, analyze, and dissect in terms of giving you a proper quality score. So that's your first function of ad copy, is to just meet basic conditions that Google is laying out in front of you so that you can have the benefits of a higher quality score and how it impacts the ad auction, which you've referenced in the past. So that's the first line of thinking with ad copy. The second line of thinking should be obvious, which is, how do I distinguish myself amongst my competition?
Yeah.
How do I write ad copy that is actually interesting, that meets all these conditions that I'm mentioning, but is able to really convey a message that attracts the click and cuts through that clutter? Because as we know, with most industries, unless you're extremely lucky to be in a very unique niche, you're going to be up against 7 potential ads on that first initial results page. So ad copywriting is a science of figuring out how to cut through that as best as possible while also meeting these Google conditions that I'm mentioning.
Yeah. It seems like a very specific and like almost tactical way of being creative.
Yes. Yeah, you have to know essentially the different elements that are available to you in your ad copy. So the simple example is the current expanded text ad format. You have 3 headlines, 2 descriptions. But for example, you need to be aware that headline 3 and description 2 are not guaranteed to always show with your ad. Google is selective as to whether or not those show. That's based on size and pixel length on the page. There's a lot of factors that go into whether or not those lines will actually show that you don't have insight into. You don't know when that's going to happen. So as a simple example, if you're writing your ad copy, your main call to action probably shouldn't be in headline 3 because it's not guaranteed to always show with your ad. So there's a lot of nuances like that. You have to be familiar with the formats. You have your expanded text ads, call-only ads, which only allow the user to actually directly initiate a phone call. You now have Google's responsive text ad format, which is essentially a template that lets you feed multiple headlines, multiple descriptions, and allow Google to optimize your copy for you. And then, of course, there's defunct ad types that are still hanging around in accounts, like the previous original standard text ad, which was 1 headline and 1 description. And then you have the first iteration of expanded text ads, which was 2 headlines and an expanded description based on character length. But now everybody's pretty much working with the current formats, which are call-only, responsive, and the expanded text ad that has 2 descriptions, 3 headlines.
So I know that you can do a lot with actual extensions.
Yes.
Are extensions available for all three of those that you're talking about?
Yeah, essentially. And ad extensions should be considered ad copy.
Okay.
I would put them in the same group. It's just the nomenclature that Google uses to call them ad extensions and kind of add-on features.
Because they're kind of like add-ons, right?
Exactly. I always call them bells and whistles, the things that
Oh,
are not required to be on your ad copy, but are always in that classic best practice list. Like pretty much every campaign should be utilizing site links and call out extensions. Those are the two that are like foundational. You should pretty much always use them.
And what do site links do? And what do call extensions do?
Site links will show direct linking underneath your ad. So it's a direct clickable link that also incurs a cost per click. The same as if they had clicked on the normal headline of the ad. But it allows you to do a couple things. You can communicate more information through site links. So if it's a holiday season, you have your standard ad that's always been there, but you have a promo page for 2019. You can have that sublink show underneath your ad and potentially direct users that way.
Which gives you, I feel like, more space.
Exactly.
More
And
of
that's the second component is just simply taking up more space on the page. Oftentimes, there are certain websites that you work with where there might actually not really be that many more interesting links or pages that you want to send people to. Right. You don't want to distract them from what your main ad copy is trying to get them to accomplish. So you just use contact us, about us, our blog, like really basic site links where it's like, to be honest, I don't expect people to be interacting with this, but it's a formal view that people expect to see with ad copy at this point. Everybody uses site links, and it takes up that extra real estate at the top of the page, which is huge.
It also mimics almost like your homepage by giving you almost like a navigation below.
Yeah, it's kind of recreating your navigation menu in a way. Right. There are limits to them. Site links can only show up to 4 at a time.
Okay.
They can show at any point on the page, whether you're at the top or the bottom of the page, they're eligible to show. You can also get site links that show with description lines underneath them. When you're creating a site link, you'll see the option to actually add some color and commentary to the site link. Similar to writing an ad. And if you're in the number 1 position, you can actually have site links come up that have text fields below them, in which case your ad is significantly larger than the others at the top of the page.
So so that copy that's below the additional link would only show up if you're in absolute top.
Yeah, number 1, absolute top is the only place you'll see those site link descriptions actually show up.
But you can have site links show no matter where you are.
Correct. And they'll show up sometimes in like a table format. Other times it'll be just a single line item with multiple links in that line. So there are definitely different formats. And for those wondering, there's no control over it. It's really only position. So position 1 dictates if you can get those descriptions. Even then, it's not guaranteed to show, which is great.
So you could have, so you could be position 1 and still not get the descriptions.
Right. And for whatever reason, your site links might not show. It's totally selective on ad extensions from Google's standpoint. So there's no setting in your account where you can say prioritize site links over callouts, for example, or prioritize my phone number versus showing site links.
It's all the algorithm, huh?
Exactly. It's just algorithmic thinking that dictates our lives for the most part.
In general, just completely.
Yeah, no.
Not even in paid search world.
We're all being programmed actively.
Exactly.
If we're being honest about things. But yeah, so site links are a good example. I mentioned callouts. Callouts are literally 25 character snippets of text. They can't be clicked on. They blend directly into ad copy. Okay. It always comes up after your descriptions, but these are really easy little places to put things like just kind of tagline messaging like free shipping, voted best of 2019, right? Whatever it might be that you feel like is not really stuff that is essential to your core ad copy. But your callouts are a place where you can kind of test like fluffy messaging, a little bit of just kind of, I don't know, just doing some experimenting with quick snippets of text. That's what those
even
are
like
about.
Trust building, it seems like with the voted best or like number 1 or something like that.
Definitely. Like I call them credibility indicators. Like, do you have have you won an award this past year? Did you achieve some sort of distinction in your industry? Things like that. And with small businesses, that kind of stuff is hard to come by. It's usually more so like, check out our latest offers, right? Or free shipping, for example, which you might want to have in your ad copy directly, to be honest. The nice part about callouts too is, so like site links, only 4 of them can show at a time with an ad. But if you feed Google, let's say like 10 callout extensions on a single campaign, it's going to do its best to try and show what it thinks is relevant to the search query, and it's going to rotate them around. And you will be able to actually see data on that. So you'll be able to see, how did my ad perform when X ad extensions were showing with it. It's actually a really common like missed reporting opportunity in accounts when you're looking at the performance report of ad extensions, a lot of users assume that, oh, my ad extension got this click-through rate. That's not actually what you're seeing. You're seeing how did your text ad perform when these ad extensions happen to show with it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your site link got like a 6% click-through rate. It means that your ad got a 6% click-through rate when your site link was visible.
Yeah.
So measuring that kind of stuff is a little bit tricky, but for the most part, it's valuable to kind of take advantage of as many ad extensions as you can. And there are quite a few at this point. Site links and callouts are essential. The call extension allows you to get your phone number to show alongside the ad. A location extension allows you to attach your Google My Business account to your Google Ads account, in which case it will surface a map listing for you.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people don't know this, but the basic trigger, if you've ever looked at map results in Google and you see an ad in that map result, it's not the Google search terms page or the search page rather, it's the actual map result showing you business locations. You will see ads there. Those ads are automatically produced if you link your Google My Business to your Google Ads account.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep. And you can't manage those ads yourself. It just happens automatically. Again, nice kind of just, out of your control aspect of this extension. But that one's extremely valuable for local businesses, especially. You have promotion extensions, which allow you to show coupon codes, percentage discounts for e-commerce advertisers. You can schedule all these in advance so that you don't actually have to manually manage when these are running.
Yeah.
You also have a price extension, which lets you actually expose direct line-by-line pricing underneath ads. So you can throw service tiers or product tiers, whatever. The structured snippet extension, arguably the one with the weirdest name, it allows you to list out certain aspects of your business defined by some criteria that Google gives you. So if you sell multiple brands, there's a structured snippet that has brands as a header, and then you can list the brands that you sell. One of them is neighborhoods. You can list out the neighborhoods that you sell to or that you're active in. So that's actually a really common one.
Creating a list.
Exactly.
Underneath your ad, right?
Yeah. And the structured snippet, unlike promotion extensions, location, site links, the structured snippet, just like callouts, is not clickable. It's just text.
Okay.
So those are essential because, again, giving you another line under your ad so you can get that much more space on the page. And anytime you can just add context to your ad copy, whether it's using extensions or writing your ad differently, that's important. So taking advantage of those types of extensions is definitely a huge aspect of ad copy.
For sure. It feels like almost whatever we can do to get ourselves more space. The standard ad format is the expanded text ad, correct?
Yes.
Which is the 2 headlines and 3 lines of copy.
The 3 headlines and then the 2 descriptions.
3 headlines, 2 descriptions. But sometimes only 2 headlines will show and only one description.
Yep.
So I'm curious, when you say that Google will select which either variation of a extension or what type of extension, is that keyword based?
It is supposedly.
Okay.
That's their claim.
Yeah.
So
Google's
and I
just a
could
big
see that.
Unknown.
Right. It's a
big question mark.
constant black box. It's really difficult. But it is intended to be based on keyword relevancy. It will also, if there's no real keyword relevancy, algorithmic score that it can work off of, my belief is that it's largely looking at, which ad extensions were showing when the ad was performing its best. And it might not actually be all that relevant, but those were the ones that just happened to be there when the ad was getting the best click-through rate over whatever date range they're looking into.
Got it.
Yep.
Another thing that we talk about a lot on this podcast, and in digital marketing in general, and one thing that a word that I've heard multiple times so far today is relevance.
Yes.
So can you talk to me about relevance in the realm of ad copy and
Sure.
how much it plays into making sure that one, your quality score is there, but 2, just kind of that your ad resonates.
Yeah. So kind of starting from the top, quality score is rated in 3 measures: landing page experience, ad relevance, and what's called expected click-through rate. So ad relevance on its own is something you have to satisfy for quality score. So when you're thinking about ad relevance, it really is down to looking at the structure of your account, meaning the segmentation of your campaigns, the segmentation of your ad groups underneath that campaign. And then when you're in an individual ad group, having a keyword focus that is tight-knit enough where when you go to write your ad copy, you can naturally write something that sounds conversational to a user, but you're able to stuff your keywords in there a little bit. So if your ad group is focused on, let's say, I was just talking to a client about this earlier, but pediatric dental services, right? And that's what your ad group is. The majority of the keywords are pediatric dental service or what have you.
Yep.
Your ad copy needs to have pediatric dental services in one of the headlines in some fashion. And you would need to find a way to get that keyword into at least part of the description. There are other sneaky ways you can get your keyword into the copy. The path section on ads is essentially like a vanity URL.
Okay.
It's not the real URL that you're sending people to, but what it'll do is it'll show your website domain. Then you can have two components to the path separated by a slash.
Interesting.
You can actually write whatever you want there. So if it's pediatric dentistry services, for example, you could have your path 1 say services, path 2 says pediatric. And because you have that pediatric term in that path section, Google marks that as a sign of relevancy.
And then if someone clicks on that, the URL obviously changes.
The URL goes to your actual landing page URL.
Okay.
That's what you're seeing in the green URL underneath the ad. It used to be called the display URL. They now call it path 1 and path 2 as parts of the display URL. But it is truly like a vanity license plate. You just get to do whatever you want with it.
Sorry, you said path 1 and path 2. Does it switch between which one will show, or do 2 actually
show? It will
show?
always show both if you have them. Sometimes the paths won't show in general. But if you have 2 in there, it will show.
Okay.
Yep. It's not going to like not show the second one and only show the first or what have you. So that's important, just simply getting your ad group level keywords found in your ad copy in some fashion. The second chain of relevancy, though, is getting to your landing page and having the content on your landing page be somewhat similar to the content on your ad copy. You don't have to go word for word, but if your call to action on your landing page is schedule an appointment should be found in your ad copy, because that's what the user is going to find on the page. They're just going to see that one-to-one relationship between what you're seeing in the copy, what's being communicated on the page. That helps with user experience. You're just not getting that dissonance of like, oh, well, book an appointment versus call for a consultation, for example. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
That could be a real issue that prevents you from getting conversions. But on the same token, Google could see that and be like, well, your landing page just says call for an appointment. There's nothing in here talking about consultation. That's going to be a mark against you on quality score.
It's also going to be a mark against you in the mind of your prospects who are no longer going to trust your ad.
Because you have just different competing information between your landing page and ad copy. You know, and I say all this stuff and it sounds easy. Like it sounds like, oh, well, I just have to get my keyword into my copy and then I have to make sure it's found on my landing page, blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly the case. That's kind of as much as you can do with it. The problem is that Google's quality score rating system is totally out of our control. Again, big theme today, not much control. But you will see instances where, for example, let's do the pediatric dentistry example again. So my keyword is pediatric dental services. In that same ad group, let's say historically over time, you've also used the singular version, pediatric dental service. You might actually see a different quality score between the two just because plural versus singular.
Interesting.
And you would then pull your hair out because you're looking at your copy and you're like, it's just services. It's the same thing. There's no contextual difference here, right? But Google is still hung up on the semantics of the word. As much as Google has claimed over the past year that they have, opened up match types for close variants and all that is happening, it does not seem to have extended to quality score yet, where you get these types of very it seems like petty differences between keywords. And you're just like, I can't do anything about it. Why am I going to rewrite my ad copy just to have one version with singular, one version with plural? And I have history behind these ads. I don't want to remove that. I don't want to reset that anyway. So that kind of stuff can get really frustrating. Yeah. And that's why, I initially started with the idea of you have two paths with your ad copywriting. You're satisfying Google conditions to the best of your ability without sacrificing your messaging and the core idea behind your ad copy. And then that second path is building that core message and figuring out the way that you're going to cut through those other advertisers. So the relevancy thing is huge. And I will say that in the journey of improving quality score, which all of us are on to a certain degree, improving ad relevance is probably the easiest thing to do. Because sometimes it's just dead obvious. I had pediatric dentistry services here, but my ad copy was talking about adult veneers. And you're just, oh, well, of course. Let's swap these out. Let's figure it out. That's more of a structural user error kind of thing. But it can get really, really, really detailed and very hairy with trying to move a 5 to a 6 on quality score. If you remember back to the conversation around the ad auction, quality score is the second component outside of your keyword bid.
Right.
Making an impact on quality score by moving it from like 4 to 6 is effectively the same thing as almost bidding 2 times the amount.
Right.
So if you can make those inroads, it's great. It really helps you. But there are natural caps to what you can do with it. And you will never get an answer from Google saying, that's as good as you can do. Don't worry about it. Move on. You'll never know.
Leave it there.
So you just have to kind of like say, well, that's what I believe to be the best ad copy based on my testing and, my experience with working with it. So while you should be satisfying these quality score conditions, that should be a part of your ad copywriting strategy. That shouldn't be the prevailing thinking when you're actually writing your copy, I would say. Yeah.
So when you are thinking about writing ad copy and you're making sure you're satisfying the conditions that are laid out by Google, how should small businesses be thinking about how they can effectively bring the art piece or the creativity piece into it to either be emotional or appeal to like a sense of need, and kind of get said person from seeing an ad that seems relevant to what they need to actually clicking on that ad?
Yeah, it's hard.
That's a big question.
There are some industries that, there's only so much you can say, right? You can't really do too much. But I have there are some tricks, like things you can do. So for example, if you're a new brand and you're trying to penetrate an industry in some way, initially, if you just write your ad copy by focusing on just marketing messaging and such, your brand name can actually get buried. It can be really difficult for somebody to be like, well, what's that company's name?
Yeah.
I saw that ad, but I can't remember, it sounded good, but I don't remember what the name of the company was, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather pay for a click or get direct traffic to your site? So one of the general strategies I use is if it's a totally new brand, they're trying to break some ground in the space, I'll put their brand name in one of the headlines of the ad copy, and then I'll actually use the copyright or the registered trademark symbol or even the TM symbol. You can use that as like a little alt code function on your number pad.
Yep.
Or you can just copy and paste it from a text document. That little visual cue, if you attach that to your brand name and it's sitting there in your headline, it's memorable.
Yeah.
You can actually
it makes it look legit.
Right. You can distinguish it and you can say, oh, that's their brand name. Right. And it seems simple on its face, but go to an ad result page for a generic industry and you might have a really difficult time picking out the individual brand names of ads unless you're looking at the URL that's showing.
Yeah.
So
that's really helpful.
Google has tried to kind of do that for you automatically. They've almost acknowledged this as a problem. Many of you have maybe seen your ad come up where your website domain is attached to the end of the headline. And you're like, I didn't write my ad to have the headline, to have that. What is that? That's Google doing that automatically, trying to get your domain name to visually show alongside the headline in a way to say, well, this is them. This is their domain. This is their brand, but here's all the other messaging, right? So that's a simple little tactic where if you're a totally new brand, you can somewhat distinguish your name a little bit at the top of the page. A lot of the rest of it just comes down to being comfortable with trying stuff and trying anywhere between kooky language to extremely stern and direct language, right? So your clients better than the marketer that you're working with. That will always be the case until that marketer works for your company, right? So if for example, that 90% of your client base is going to be a 65-year-old man who's interested in, let's say, a life insurance policy, right? They're not going to care that you won this award in 2019 or that you have a great work-life culture in which you support your community through charity efforts. People might actually think that that's distinguishing messaging in their copy. What that man cares about are rates and pricing, right? So write your ad copy to cater to that. Put actual numbers in your copy. Put real pricing in your copy. Be transparent. A lot of times that can properly pre-qualify clicks. You can avoid having a click on your ad if you have a transparent credit card loan rate, for example, that somebody says, no way. So something like a pricing extension, for example, if you're a high-end salon, you should have a pricing extension on your ad because you want to show what your standard cut price is versus your competitor. And if there's a differentiation point there, that's great. But at the same time, you're also able to say, don't you dare click on my ad if this is a price you can't handle, right? So
you don't want to pay for traffic that you're not going to convert. Exactly.
So being transparent with what your services are, the pricing, the expectation of how long a particular service might take or, what to expect with a certain product, all that kind of stuff, being as transparent as you can and giving that information up front is a good move. It definitely helps you, again, ward off the the window shoppers, the folks who are just kind of clicking around, but aren't necessarily taking in the full information. I would say on the kooky side, like the classic example that you've probably heard a million times is like a divorce lawyer. Is like getting tired of your wife yet, or something like that. And like, I think it's like super crass, right? Yeah. It's not the best type of messaging you want to get out there. But if that's your style
and it's memorable
and you want that type of client who's the guy who's like ready to go after, in a divorce settlement, that's what you should be using. You have to be honest to yourself. You have to be true to what your brand is about. But I can guarantee you that people don't care about what you did in your community this week, right?
Yeah.
They care more about what your pricing is, what your service is going to provide, why are you different? Which, again, can be difficult to communicate at times. I'm actually, to this day, I'm surprised by how many clients I work with who fail to give me unique selling points about their business. And part of that is because there are industries where there are certain aspects that just have to be similar across brands, right? And then other times it's folks that just really haven't put too much thought into like truly the differentiating factors. It's just they've been successful locally because that's what they're able to do. But now they're like, well, I want to take this national, or I want to expand into another state. You got to start thinking about something that puts you above the rest.
It can also be hard to kind of distill down when you're if you're offering a lot of things, or if you're offering a more complex service. It can be hard to distill that into a couple of taglines.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Like I on the marketing team at WordStream, we know that we help people with PPC, but we have an in-house agency. We have a lot of knowledge resources. We're a really big proponent of being education driven.
Yep.
And we have a software. So there comes times where we're like, how do we
put that all together
that in a box?
Trust me, I struggle every day when I talk to my clients to communicate value properly. But it's one of those instances where if you can find those unique selling points that have existed since the beginning of your company, sometimes those are like the foundational reasons why you started your business.
Yeah.
And that's the type of stuff that you can start to bake in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do lean on the kind of more like austere side of ad copy, which is like, just tell people what you do.
Yeah.
And be very open with it. Tell them what you don't do, tell them about the insurances that you don't take, right? Things like that. So, and the reality is you have a ton of options with trying different copies, right? You can have that austere copy that I'm talking about. And then in the same ad group, you have a hokey pokey thing that's just like some weird messaging that you thought would be distinguishing enough, but maybe not really that transparent, but it's enough to maybe make your ad look different or at least sound different on the page. All this stuff is like theoretical. Like when you're really getting down to it, you have to write different variants of your copy and test them.
Yeah.
You do need to look at, what is a strong sample size for my industry based on how much I'm paying, et cetera. How can I then justify that sample size to say I need to change my ads based on these click-through rates, conversion rates, all that stuff. You need to have a cadence for how often you do change your ad copy or look at that type of reporting. That's for any business, it could be week to week, 30 days to 30 days, 90 days to year.
Yeah.
That's going to be different for every industry, right? I think a lot of people listening and a lot of folks that are in this space may be trying to take kind of the easy approach, which is like a hard and fast rule or rule of thumb that you should always follow.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like for any benchmark in paid search, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that people WordStream has our benchmark blog post. It's one of our most popular blog posts, right?
Yeah.
And we update that as often as we can. That's an aggregate of thousands of accounts, right? In totally different geographies with totally different spend rates. And you can't necessarily say that like a 5.5 click-through rate is the benchmark for the legal services industry, right? Like you can do it based on whatever your data is telling you at that point, and that's your benchmark based on your unique data.
Yep.
It's going to be different client to client, And so much of it comes down to like truly the quality of the brand, the business offering. What is the person seeing after they're clicking through the ad?
So it's interesting because we have talked about a couple of things. One being crafting a value prop, and two being creating a persona. So it seems like from what we've talked about, a really important aspect of writing truly engaging and efficient ad copy is catering your, effectively delivering your value proposition to the correct persona.
Right.
in a way that would resonate.
Yep. And that persona, that you're showing your ad copy to is dictated by your keywords.
Right.
What are you using to attract that user to your ad? It's a very inexact science. There's hard metrics that you can work off of to help you understand and improve ad copy. But, on a day-to-day basis, we're at the mercy of customer behavior, what the flavor of the day is, what's the news of the day, are people depressed today, are people happy today, whatever's happening globally, nationally, who cares? But the season's going to affect it. I mean, there's so many factors to your copy where if you're just constantly fixated on click-through rates and just testing single variables against each other, things like that, you're just kind of going to go nuts because you're not accounting for these real world factors that are really impacting how people engage with your ads.
Spin in circles.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be maddening.
So we've talked about a lot today, definitely gotten a lot of really great information. Is there any, I like to do a major takeaways section.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing that you want to tell a small business marketer or a small business owner when they're working on their ad copy and creating, trying to create really, helpful ads for their business and for their customers, do you have a major takeaway that you think?
Honesty and transparency is key. You have to be true to your brand. You can't lie and make up stats or inflate client case studies that you worked on and said you've worked with 100 small businesses when you've worked with 10.
Yeah.
Don't do stuff like that. Be honest with yourself, be honest with what you're capable of and what you think you do really, really well. An example I can give from my past life doing content marketing was, with content marketing, you essentially got to a point where everybody and their mom had a blog.
Yep.
Everybody and their mom was purchasing blogs for $10 a pop. And every one of those blogs was the top 10 things to do or not do in the respective industry, right? Yeah. And obviously there's a lot of other flavors of what that started to look like. The best people to work with in the content marketing industry were the ones that were I have something that I do that nobody else does that I want to get out there.
Yeah.
I have a proprietary piece of information that nobody else knows about, and I need to communicate that.
Yep.
My core example, and it's my favorite client story to tell, in my career, was I had all these kind of cookie cutter content marketing clients who were doing the blog mill thing. And I'm just my soul is eating away, right? You're just Jesus Christ, this is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm not contributing anything at all. And at this point, we're just rehashing content as much as we can. I finally get a client that effectively is a hypnotherapy training institute.
Ooh.
For clinical applications of hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
And the two individuals that I was working with, or I was working with their son, it was a married couple in their 70s who had essentially written the book on clinical hypnotherapy. They have entire research journal pieces stemming from the late 60s to now, conducting research, getting verification on clinical hypnotherapy, all that kind of stuff. So I'm on the first call with them. I'm like, well, do you think that they would be able to write some content for us? Would they be happy to write a blog? Or perhaps we put together a guide that helps people understand the applications of clinical hypnotherapy. Their whole mission was to bring in psychiatrists, psychologists, people in the industry to get them certified to actually conduct hypnotherapy. So they were a training institute, and a client for them is somebody that they pays a fee to get trained on clinical hypnotherapy. We wind up producing what we called the ultimate guide to clinical hypnotherapy that was pages and pages of proprietary research-based content that they had written over the years, but nobody was exposed to, right?
Yeah.
But this was an example where you had content that was unique.
Yeah.
This was something where once we put it out in the market, we had people emailing them constantly being like, can you update your guide? Can you send more of this information, right? And
drove a lot of value.
Right. And the client said it to me in a certain way. They were like, we actually put something out there that people needed. It wasn't just a copy and paste of information that's already existed on the internet for years. That's how you need to think about your ad copy. You need to spend time going deep and really thinking about what your brand is supposed to be. Perhaps that leads you to a dark place where you realize what you're doing is cookie cutter, right?
Yeah.
And, some industries that's going to be the case, and, that's fine, right? But if you're really looking to cut through the clutter, it has to come from the heart. And you do have to find a way to say, hey, this is something I'm doing that nobody else is doing, or I have a flavor to this that I know is going to work in your context.
Yeah. Or even use that emotional piece of why you got into that.
Yes.
And why it's important to you.
Absolutely. And now you only have, 90 characters in your description 1, 90 characters in description 2 that won't even show.
Yeah.
And then you have your 35 characters between each individual headline. So you have to pack that message in, right, as best as you can. So you make it bite-sized. It's very hard to do. But your landing page can then continue that story.
It's a great exercise in copywriting.
Yeah.
And being really good at getting a message across in a really great way.
Definitely. If you're not honest with yourself, you're probably not being honest with your customers either. So
it's a good point.
Let's make sure that's the primary driver.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I've learned a lot today. I think that was super valuable. Thank you so much for your time.
Cool. It was great.
Make sure to follow the Goal Talk podcast on Twitter. Next week, we will be speaking to Zena Kayali on the anatomy of a money-making landing page, discussing the ins and outs of, necessary components. So that'll be a really exciting one as well. Coming up near the end of the season, it's kind of sad. But join in on the conversation on Twitter. And until next time, thanks.
Thank you, guys.